What's up, G's? I'm back with another reaction video, and today I'm going to be reacting to What If Nintendo Made Marvel Rivals by Dylonic, something like that. The Big Deal.
What?
No, if you guys haven't already seen my reactions to Dan Boy Wonder's Ben 10 Rivals videos and Treo Boyo's DC Rivals videos, those will be linked down in the description. I also have my own Mortal Kombat Rivals videos that you can check out on my main channel. Those will also be linked. I highly encourage you guys to watch those videos after this video. But with that being said, let's get into the video. I already have some ideas in my head of what could be a part of this video, so I'm really interested to see what he has to say.
I can't even lie. I'm still addicted to Marvel Rivals after all this time later. I assume the hyperfixation would die down by now, especially considering that I made an entire video about it, but no.
Roster video.
In fact, this is pretty much the only game that I've been playing ever since. Heck, I almost missed a video deadline because I'm trying to ever so desperately get out of Platinum. Anyways, with Marvel Rivals' success and seeing the potential of a hero shooter where every character is actually unique to one another, it got me thinking about what other companies could follow in Marvel's footsteps. Yeah, you know where this is going. Look, I make Nintendo content, yet I kind of want to make more Rivals content. Surely you understand. Look, I think this is the perfect middle ground. I was on call with a friend playing Marvel Rivals, and he was playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and we kind of started discussing about what the future of the series could look like. That got me thinking and eventually led to this idea. I think Nintendo is perfectly ripe for more crossovers. The Switch 2 has backwards compatibility with original Switch games, meaning that pretty much all first-party games are expected to be playable on the new console. Where am I going with this? Well, nobody really knows where Smash Bros. Is going beyond Ultimate. Yeah, there is a great chance that Nintendo is cooking another one for Switch 2, but I want to be different and say that it just may not be the case. Ultimate is the de facto fighting game on Switch. There's no possible way Nintendo could go bigger than Ultimate unless they just quote-unquote remaster the game and make the roster an even 100. But even then, should they do that? I think it's time for Nintendo to branch out a little bit. We're growing back into a very experimental time for the Nintendo. Mario's getting new art styles for his games, along with new voice actors, not to mention remakes and new RPGs. Zelda is going in a wildly different direction from what we used to know it was. And other niche franchises are starting to become flagship titles for Nintendo, like Xenoblade. The Switch has done wonders for so many of Nintendo's franchises, and I think it's time to give Smash a rest in line for something new and fresh.
Every time I think of Smash, I think of
Marvel Rivals
Multiverse.
Prove that you can have a variety ensemble cast of characters ranging from fists to guns and have it still work out. Marvel innovated the genre of hero shooter, and I would love to see more games like it. With the past decade now, Nintendo has had more experience with real-time online action with Splatoon, and to be fair, it's just kind of really fun to think about. So that's why I'm here. We're just going to be going over what a Nintendo hero shooter could look like if given the proper time and care as, say, Marvel Rivals. For simplicity's sakes, I'm just going to be calling it Nintendo Rivals. I'm not even going to try to be creative with the name. If you have one, let me know in the comments. We're mostly going to be covering over the roster, as I'm sure that's what the majority of people are here for, but along the way, I want to discuss some other features the game might have as well. Mostly features that the game would sport to help it differentiate itself from other hero shooters. So, without further ado, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. So Marvel Rivals is a very large roster for a game like this, launching with 33 characters, and as of writing this video, a very rounded out 37 with the Fantastic Four in Season 1. I think if Nintendo were to make a game like this, I feel like they should make a roster as big as Marvel Rivals, just because that was a huge drawing point to the game, is that you could play as so many characters. I didn't count how many characters that I actually wrote into the script of this video, but I did try and throw in as many as I can. We're mostly just going to be going over characters that are already in Super Smash Bros. Just as a guide of where things should go, but I do have a section at the end of the video full of 5 newcomers who haven't gotten much spotlight in Smash, let alone at all. So as a very clean base, I want to start out with the trinity of characters that I think are, of course, the most obvious picks, and then we'll go from there. So when making the roster, I quickly ran into a problem that needed to be overcome really quickly, otherwise this video would be really boring, and it's that the majority of Smash's roster pretty easily fits into the DPS category. This means that they're focused on attacking while the vanguards are focused on being on the front line, pushing others back, capping points, and the strategists being supports and healers. I had to get pretty creative with some of these ideas, and I think you'll be interested in what I have in store. So the first pick, it's Mario, obviously. But since he's just the overall face of Nintendo, I think he deserves to go into the duelist category by default. Most players insta-lock duelist characters, and having your most famous character as a duelist feels appropriate, but I don't want Mario to be an easy character to learn nor to master. He's going to be very akin to Spider-Man from Rivals. Easily the hardest character to learn in the game, and I think his moves should be very reliant on how athletic Mario is as a character.
Yeah.
You could just make Mario be an easy character to learn by just throwing punches, maybe throwing fireballs as an ability, but I really think his movement should be at the forefront. The best aspects of nearly every Mario game come down to how he controls. Mario 64 being a pioneer in speedrunning with some of the most insane movement tech. You could chain together movement options like the long jump and triple jump, being able to jump off walls just like the games. You could give him fireballs as well for some extra ranged attacks, and his ultimate could be something like grabbing a star and being able to run through enemies like crazy and damage them while you're running. Very similar to the Yancey Street charge from the Thing, but way more powerful. Another thing I was thinking about is how he could also pull from Mario's other titles as well, in particular the RPGs. Mario RPG, Mario & Luigi, and Paper Mario all offer really good battle opportunities to pull from, since Mario is mostly about movement in his core platformers. You can also bring in team-ups from Marvel Rivals as well and give Mario and Luigi some kind of bros attack as their team-up. I've always liked the elemental dynamic that Mario and Luigi had with fire and lightning. You could do something with that. Maybe even give Mario his iconic hammer from the RPGs.
I didn't know lightning was a thing that
this would do really well just to set him apart from his mainline titles and steer away from being a really boring character all around. I like both the movement options and the RPG ideas, and when I was writing down these ideas for this video, I thought of something that could really set a Nintendo Rivals apart from other hero shooters. You could honestly make Nintendo Rivals a carbon copy of Marvel Rivals, and I would be all here for it, but I do think adding new or refined elements to the Nintendo Rivals experience could make the game a lot more interesting. I don't see Nintendo going the free-to-play route on any of this. If they were, I think Smash and Splatoon would be that way already. I do think if Nintendo is going to put an upfront price on the game, they need to handle a lot of things differently. We absolutely cannot have a slow drip feed of characters, or maybe we can. I could see something similar to Smash happening where we get some DLC season pass type things going on with a set of characters coming to the game and major updates along the way. It would almost be a combination of how Nintendo handled Super Smash Bros. Post-launch and how they handled Splatoon post-launch. Character-wise, we would probably see DLC packs along the way, but there would be constant minor updates, events, and adjustments throughout, just like they would with Splatoon. There definitely wouldn't be any microtransactions, nor did I think there would be FOMO around the game with limited time skins and whatnot. I think Nintendo would give us skins that we can unlock by playing the actual game, and color swaps unlocked from the start like Smash. But here's the real game changer I thought about while writing this. Character customization. Having something like character building would be such a fun mechanic to explore, and it's something no hero shooter, to my knowledge, has really attempted before. Not only would every character play unique, but as you gain proficiency with the character and tackle missions with them and whatnot, you would continue to unlock new moves for said character, and are able to mix and match different moves together to make your ultimate version of said character. I also think this would help with trimming down the roster a bit. With this mechanic, you can basically combine multiple characters into one, negating the need for echoes and the like. Now, I'm not saying this mechanic could make you into an entirely different class, like making a duelist into a vanguard, but I think giving characters many different options on how to play would make the game so much more chaotic and fun, and it would help circumvent fatigue in the game when characters are no longer being added. Tired of a movement-based Mario? Diving into backlines and getting destroyed all the time? Switch up his moves and make him based off his RPG appearances and stick it out in the front line. I don't know, maybe this is a mechanic that can get out of hand pretty quickly, but I have faith in Nintendo to work around making certain characters not completely OP with certain combinations. Next up on our roster is Link, which is, of course, the second most obvious pick, and I'm gonna be tossing him in the Vanguard category.
Right.
I was debating with myself for a long
I kind of want to talk about Mario's moveset a little bit. What I was thinking was he would kind of be like a dive character a little bit. He would have like a jump attack, a large jump attack. His primary would probably be the fireballs, but while he is jumping up in the air, he can obviously jump on top of the opponent and it would do damage as well. But he would also be able to do the slam move that he does in the games, and that would do extra damage, a little bit like Captain America a little bit. And then he'd be a little bit like Hulk, but like as a duelist. So like he would have his big form that he usually stays in, but if you get him down to 0, he transforms to little form, and that little form has like half as much health. And if you stay alive long enough in the little form, you can eventually transform back into the big form with a mushroom, kind of similar to the Hulk with his ultimate. And then maybe for his ultimate, he could either have like the big mushroom that turns him big and he can stomp around, or like Delonix said, he could have the star power up and it can be like a Penny Parker the Thing type move. As for Link, as a tank, he always has the shield, right? And when you think about it, Tank, he's a little scrawny kid, right? But not only mixed with the shield, that could also act kind of like Captain America's shield. Also, if you think about it, a character like Mario, really only has like 3 things of damage that he can take depending on what power up you have. But with Link, his minimum is like 3 attacks that he can take. And if you're talking about end game Link, you could probably survive like 15 hits. So technically, he is kind of a tankier character than, say, a Mario. And because tanks are sort of usually short range characters, the sword would make sense for like his primary attack. So let's see what Delonic has to say about
on whether
Link.
to make Link a tank or not, because on the surface, he seems like the perfect pick to be a duelist, even more so than Mario.
He's a little boy.
But then I refer back to the problem I had earlier, and I honestly just think Link could work very well as something like an evasion tank. They still gather attention away from your attackers and healers, but have good movement options and evasion to avoid enemy attacks, and I think this would work very well for Link. I was also thinking about what kind of Link to put in the game, and I eventually settled on a mix between Breath of the Wild and Ocarina of Time, essentially combining the 2 styles of play from each game. You could even throw skins from the games depending on what you prefer. I kind of base some of his moveset off of Captain America and Marvel Rivals, give him a limited sprint like from Breath of the Wild, or unlimited, I don't really care. He'd also have a large reliance on his shield just like Captain America. It'd be really cool if it had a certain amount of damage it could take before it shatters just like Breath of the Wild, and that would lead into a unique cooldown. Give him some mobility options like the hook shot, being able to go from point A to B really quickly, or use it to bring enemies to you as if it were Bucky's grapple. Being able to close distance like that would be pretty fun for a tank. Look, I tried to make all these characters sound original. I even came up with that hook shot bit on my own, and then I remembered that Bucky has a pretty similar move, and I thought a lot about his ultimate, and I'm kind of torn on what to go with. Maybe he drinks a potion from Breath of the Wild that gives him extra hearts and defense, and lets him shoot lasers out of the Master Sword.
Oh, he could shoot
to fully round out the main trilogy of characters, I had to get a bit creative. Because truth be told, there are a lot of characters out there that can go toe-to-toe with Mario and Zelda. Those guys are definitely the big 2, but a runner-up to them is very much up for debate in terms of this game. Since Mario's a DPS and Link a tank, that leaves us with a healer. And I could think of no better pick than the Inkling from Splatoon. Now, hear me out. I wouldn't consider Splatoon in the running for the big 3 of Nintendo, but the impact this franchise has had on the company in the past 10 years since the first game came out is pretty crazy. This is definitely a new flagship property for Nintendo, and I think they would be a good fit for the big 3 since Splatoon is already an online shooter-based game. Having them next to Mario and Link feels appropriate for this game at the very least, but you're probably wondering, why the hell are they a strategist? Well, they could be good for general support instead of straight healing. I think about certain weapons that are in Splatoon. I'm thinking about having the Blobber maybe as the main weapon. The Squid Kids, they can use that to heal
They're literally just the shark. They can go under the shits.
They could have side abilities like being able to set some ink on the ground to slow down enemies, almost like a trap. Maybe set up a splash wall just like in their games, and their ultimate is the Killer Whale, or say the Roller, where they're constantly laying down ink that can heal your allies and take out enemies. There's a lot of opportunity for what Splatoon characters can do in a game like this. There's a lot that you could pull from with them, so I don't think my made-up moveset is de facto for them. I'm sure someone out there is going to come up with something even cooler. Now that we've set the main 3 as a baseline for our game, we're able to spread out into many other Nintendo franchises and even more characters within the same franchise, starting off with Mario. I think it's an absolute shoo-in that Luigi, Peach, and Bowser get a spot in the roster, but I think that's where it should stop. Okay, throw in Wario for funsies. Luigi can go straight into the strategist role. Bowser and Mario are very much tanks, and I honestly don't really know where to set Peach. My first thought was strategist. We can pull from our game on the DS to use emotions to buff and heal your team and debuff enemies, but then I remembered that Princess Peach Showtime is a game that exists, which kind of throws everything I said out the window, since she can transform into all sorts of characters. I'll let you guys decide on where she goes. I've never touched Princess Peach Showtime, nor do I ever plan to for now. So I'll just set her in strategist just like my original plan. Moving on from Mario, we're finally able to talk about other Nintendo franchises, Zelda, Metroid, and many others.
We're not about to go past Mario. Obviously, Bowser gotta be a tank, right? And my idea, he'd probably have like slow fireballs that he could shoot from his mouth, right? That'd probably be his primary fire, but a cool passive that he could have would be that because he has the shell on his back, any back shots that he takes, the damage done will be reduced because it's going to the shell and it's not really hurting him as much because it's hurting the shell. Kind of like the opposite of Loki's R3 attack where he stabs the back. His does increased damage if he stabs the back, but with Bowser, it's the opposite. He takes less damage if he gets hit in the back. I think that would be a cool passive for Bowser to have. The next we're getting
for the
Zelda
franchise,
Zelda
I
characters.
had a bit of trouble getting the idea of what characters to include and where. There's
Ganondorf
not a lot of characters other
character.
than Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf that would be remotely interesting for a game like this. You could include Sheik if you really wanted to, but Sheik barely had a moveset in Smash. I think that problem would very much carry over here unless you wanted to make her a flank similar to Psylocke. We already talked about Link, but I think Zelda and Ganon really are the only real options to pick from. Zelda can focus on magic and be a healer. Maybe she could have a meter that builds up over time that, when filled, can create a phantom around her or next to her that can essentially give her some much needed armor and attack capabilities, like what Mr. Fantastic can do. I think giving her a good healer focus while having the phantom be her ultimate or an extra move that could give her the combat support she needs would be very useful because we know she's not going to get it anywhere else. I'm totally fine with keeping her design from Smash. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Zelda just really don't have the fighting nor the magic capabilities to really carry their own in a fight. All Zelda really did in Breath of the Wild that would count is keep Ganon at bay for 100 years. I guess you could throw in her Secret Stone from Tears of the Kingdom. Her light abilities could focus on healing, and she could use the Time Stone for some fun abilities. I'm not a fan of Tears Zelda though. You can change her moveset all you want, but I'm still gonna stick her as a healer, and Ganondorf goes exactly where you think he would go. Whether he's a dive or not is up to you, because like Link, he does have a lot of moveset potential. You could make him a real tank and make him slow and beefy, something similar to how he was in Twilight Princess or in Brawl, using dark magic for his attacks, but I very much prefer him using a proper arsenal. While Link's moveset is a mix of both Breath of the Wild and his other games, I think it'd be cool if each Zelda character represented a different corner of the Zelda mythos. Link could represent Ocarina of Time in the 3D games, Zelda with her design could represent games like A Link Between Worlds in the 2D games, and Ganondorf can be represented by the open world games and have his moveset be based off of Tears of the Kingdom. I do think it's the best course of action to go since his moves are so varied in tiers. He can create weaker Phantom Ganons that stand around and do whatever, similar to Loki. He can switch between a spear and a club, whacking enemies around. I could see him being a dive similar to Hulk in the sense that both characters love making giant leaps on smaller opponents. I honestly have a feeling that Ganondorf would be one of the strongest characters in the game if done right. I was thinking about including Toon Link in the mix just for funsies, but I think adding a second Link at launch would be a bit too much, so he can be saved for a later season or something. That, and with our character building mechanic combined with skins, you could probably just have a regular Link sub out some moves for some Wind Waker inspired ones. Outside of Mario and Zelda, I can hardly see any other Nintendo franchise getting any more than about 3-ish characters each. I think Metroid would be perfectly fine off if we had just Samus and her only. She could be the Diva or Hulk equivalent in this game, where her armor is what keeps her as powerful. I'm thinking about making her a duelist just for the fact that she's really agile in her suit, and I think a slow-moving Samus would just feel wrong. But that also brings in an issue of her armor breaking too easily, because the point of characters like Hulk and Diva were that you had so much health to tank before retrieving to this puny form that you had to survive in, and I think that's a relatively easy counter. Can make both versions of her very reliable. Metroid is all about getting upgrades for your suit, and I think her kit should
just be Penny Parker and the armor doesn't break.
My first thought is if Nintendo wanted to avoid any kind of endgame spoilers for Dread or whatever Metroid game, they could just have Samus drop a power bomb with a quick and easy explosion to obliterate everything in your path, just like
rolling for
a certain maximum pulse. Kirby, Meta Knight, and King Dedede are very much easy shoo-ins. Being able to go into each category too is they're kind of the perfect trio. King Dedede would very much be a tank. I think he'd have a good mix of mobility options along with crowd control. Meta Knight would be a duelist, of course. Kirby seemed like a strangely easy healer pick to me. Like I said, I know we're gonna have to make some creative choices that not a lot of people would agree with, but I think Kirby would easily fit well into the strategist category. Of course, he'd be able to deal mild damage, but I think we could lean more into the general support area rather than healing. Kirby could be really good at flanking and crowd control by being able to suck up enemies and spit them out in another direction. He'd also be able to do the same with his allies and move them to somewhere else or even heal them. His ultimate, whether he a duelist or a strategist, was a no-brainer. It's a copy ability. He'd hit a generational suck on the enemy team and be able to copy anyone's ability he would like and even use their ultimate for a shot.
That's a horrible Moon Knight.
This would be his ultimate. It really is more fun thinking outside of the box for these characters and putting them in roles that you wouldn't necessarily expect them in. And I just just think it would have a really good gameplay element to it too. So many people want to be DPS, whether they should or not is up to how they play, but when you put in some of your most iconic characters in lesser used roles, that gets people to broaden their horizons and try positions that they wouldn't use otherwise. I explained that in my initial Marvel Rivals review that I was a DPS main when I started out, but due to some of my favorite characters being in other roles, primarily the tanks, I was far more intrigued to get good with other characters than just sticking to what I thought I knew, and to this day, I'm still a tank main playing characters like Magneto, Hulk, and my current favorite, The Thing. This thinking almost led me to swapping Mario and Link's roles, making Mario a tank and Link a duelist, but I settled for what made more sense to me. I want most of the original 12 from Smash represented in this game from the base roster. Not the original 12 exactly, but the franchises themselves. I'm mostly saying that because I don't think I want Jigglypuff in the game at all. I don't know what it would do, and it makes me mad. Same thing with Captain Falcon. He's the easiest duelist pick of all time, and you can just copy his exact moves from Smash. It's pretty easily translatable. Or just don't have him in the game at all.
Straight
F-Zero practically doesn't exist at this point.
For real.
Someone's so mad at me right now. Pokemon has the chance to get a decent amount of reps, but I want to keep it relatively small just so we have a tight roster of major characters only. Pikachu is an easy duelist, quick and hard to hit, being able to toss little lightning bolts down for AoE and the like, they'd just be really cool. And I think the only other Pokemon character I would really add would be Pokemon Trainer. Yes, I know, Xenoblade is going to get more characters than Pokemon in my roster, but we haven't even talked about Xenoblade yet. The idea I have for Pokemon Trainer is kind of genius. Make them a representative of every class. You could have the individual characters of Squirtle, Ivysaur, Charizard be their own characters, but I think it'd be cool to keep them as one just like in Smash. None of the Pokemon's moves would be crazy individually, but together, I think they would be one of the most fun characters to play in the game.
If Squirtle
would be the most blatant Jeff the Landshark ripoff you've ever seen. Ivysaur would be able to plant little seedlings for traps and use Razor Leaf as his primary, and Charizard would be wild to use. I don't know if he should be a flyer or not, you guys can decide in the comments, but I basically see him as a straight rip from Smash, just translated into this game, and that's not because I don't know what to do with him, I just think his moves fit really well. Having his side B get translated into a sweet AoE dive move would be pretty cool, and being able to breathe fire to block people from advancing would be fun too. Like I said, on their own, none of these characters would be all that great, but when you're out on the point, comboing these Pokemon, healing your team 1 second, frontlining the next, I think Pokemon Trainer has the potential to be one of the most fun and competitively viable characters in the entire game. And Star Fox and Earthbound, yeah, I completely forgot about those guys. You could have Ness in the game be a pretty easily duelist or strategist. I can go either way with the character building mechanic. You can have him play like Lucas or play like Ness, which negates any use for Lucas being in the game. And Star Fox, I have no idea what to do with him. And now we get to the really fun characters. For me, at least. The RPG characters. Showing a Smash fan a character with a sword or a bar of soap is the same thing as showing a vampire a cross. Unlike every other Nintendo YouTuber guy out there, I actually am an RPG guy. I love them just as much as any other franchise like Mario and Zelda, and they're definitely gonna get some love. Fire Emblem is getting hard limited to 3 characters. Smash fans rejoice, even though Fire Emblem is getting more characters than Pokemon. Technically, the characters we're getting from Fire Emblem are Marth, Robin, and Byleth from Three Houses. I was debating on including Eliar in the roster, considering that Engage is the most recent Fire Emblem game at the time of making this video. But at the end of the day, they're all characters with swords. Make Robin and Marth a duelist and subject Byleth to being a tank. Even in Smash, Byleth was definitely the most unique Fire Emblem character outside of Robin, and I think this trio of characters makes for a very unique playstyle for each one. They're all different in design and would each play very differently. He could almost play similarly to Wolverine being a tank shredder. Robin would use a lot of magic, AoE, fire, electricity, wind, all the stuff that would come with a Fire Emblem magic user, and Byleth would use the much heavier Creststone weapons they're known for using. They could use the Sword of the Creator, using it as a whip sword for some decent range. Although I would prefer if they used the axe that I forgot the name of if they're going to be a tank. It did so much damage in Smash, and like I said, it would create a lot more variety on the playstyles and maybe get some Smash fans to stop clowning on a franchise they know absolutely nothing about. I think the axe would just be cool, and it also comes back to the character customization feature I mentioned. Just get nuts with it. And now we've come to the Xenoblade characters, which I have put way too much thought into. Xenoblade is my favorite gaming franchise of all time. I've been with the franchise since the original Xenoblade X released on the Wii U, and seeing the franchise grow as big as it is and getting recognized this way just makes me so happy. It also gives you the leeway to insert more Xenoblade characters in the game. Monolith Soft has almost definitely worked on your favorite first-party Switch games, so giving Xenoblade 3 characters is definitely warranted. They deserve it. First off, Shulk. Of course, obviously. I think Shulk has a very unique opportunity similar to Pokemon Trainer in the sense that he could be just about any and every class. The Monado is a very versatile weapon, and my first thought would be to make him a tank, or at least that's how he could start out. The Monado is a two-handed weapon that's pretty heavy to lug around, and Shulk is literally a tank in the Xenoblade 3 DLC, so this just makes sense. The Monado is known for the buffs you can give to yourself and your party, so having them in the forefront would be pretty fun.
That is third
Since he's starting as a tank, I think the Monado shield and Monado speed would be pretty good to start out with. He could even use the Monado wall ability he had in the Xenoblade 2 DLC. He would take full advantage of the character building mechanic, being able to swap out multiple Monado arts for many others. I also think his regular art should be mixed in there as well. I do have more Xenoblade characters I want to talk about, but we'll talk about that in the newcomer section later. Now, I know what some of you are probably wondering. I'm talking about so many characters right now, but not once have I mentioned a third-party character, and the truth is, I kind of wanted to keep this strictly Nintendo focused. Even with the character count, we're practically cutting the Smash Ultimate roster by about 2/3, and Smash has so many characters anyway, I just kind of wanted to keep this as streamlined as possible. If you would like to see a sequel to this video in the future where we talk about more characters, first and third party, let me know. Although, there is one character that I'm going to let slide through the cracks. Just for funsies. Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic just feels so integrated into Nintendo's crossover identity.
Again, how do you do speedsters in a hero shooter?
I know I just said I want this to be streamlined literally 2 seconds ago, but this is my video and I can break a few rules here and there. It also helps knowing that Sonic has so much more moveset potential as of late, with Sonic Frontiers giving the guy a damn skill tree. I feel I need to do him justice here because he's probably the most misrepresented Smash character out there. Sonic, of course, would be a high mobility character, the fastest in the game, bar none, but he'd also be a character with the least amount of health. I feel like that's a worthy trade-off for someone who's going to be really hard to hit. He'd also be one of the hardest characters to master alongside Mario. I think his speed would be hard to handle, but so rewarding when you take the time to learn it. He could run around and use a side loop for AoE damage, being able to launch characters up in the air for a moment and disorient them. He'd also have his standard punches and kicks, but his dive capabilities would be unmatched. If there was literally anyone I would compare Spider-Man to in this video, it would definitely be Sonic. I really don't know how to feel about that. Use his homing attack to stomp or dive in on characters, use his side loop and run out. Could also do a lot with his ultimate. I think Super Sonic would be a bit cheap, but you definitely could use him, especially considering how he acted in Frontiers. Pretty much just giving a lot more damage to his abilities and whatnot. Like I said, I'd love to talk more about this, but this video is already running much longer than I had originally anticipated. So if you would like to see a part 2 with more first and third party characters, like the video and subscribe to this channel. This video hits 100 likes, I'll do another one, guaranteed. Trust me, I'm very much aware that I left out some returning characters from Smash. I think Pit would be cool, Olimar definitely deserves a spot, and more Pokemon is always fun, but I think it's time to give spotlight to a few characters that aren't even in Smash that I think would go so well with this game. These 5 characters are fun, and one in particular I wasn't planning on talking about at all. Actually, count that as 2. Starting, we have Noah and Mio from Xenoblade Chronicles 3. If Shulk is a tank, Noah and Mio are definitely duelists. Noah's Lucky 7 is still quite a heavy sword, especially with its sheath, but it's more lightweight looking than the Monado, and Mio is definitely perfect for a duelist role. She's quick and agile, and I think using the twin rings would be fun for a game. Their ultimate would act as their charge for merging into Ouroboros. Which Ouroboros form you go into depends on the character you're playing as at the current time. If you're playing as Noah, you'll transform into the Kavesi Ouroboros for a limited time. And if you're playing as Mio, you'll turn into the Agnes Ouroboros. I think their ultimate and overall abilities would add a lot of fun strategy to the game since you wouldn't be able to flip-flop between them all the time. My second pick is Ring Fit Trainer. I told you, you weren't going to anticipate this one. Ring Fit Adventure is currently sitting amongst the highest selling Switch games and deserves more love. I've hardly seen anyone talk about the game too, which is why I was so surprised to see the sales numbers when I looked them up. Ring Fit Adventure is a sleeper hit and would be a really funny duelist or support character, giving teammates buffs and healing by giving them healthy food and getting fit. I don't know, doing squats. Pick number 3 is Walu freaking Luigi. Mostly just because I am so tired of hearing about him, and I want the fan base to be happy for once. Or, you know, replace him with Geno. I think Geno would be cooler. Waluigi is just an easy pick for a game like this. He doesn't have much moveset potential as any of the other Mario characters.
His moveset's
he's
just
such
tennis.
a requested character that it almost feels wrong not to put him there.
He would just be
or,
a
you know, still put Geno in the game. Number 4 is Rex and Nia from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Look, I enjoy Pyra and Mythra in Smash, and I think they'd be a decent addition, but with Xenoblade 3 being out and Noah and Neo already being duelists, I think Rex and Nia would greatly fit the healer role. They wouldn't be that complicated to play. Nia would almost act identical to how she was in Xenoblade 2, using water to heal allies, and that would pretty much be her only focus. Rex could deal some mild damage as her driver, but that's pretty much all they do, is heal. Heal, heal, heal. And finally, our last newcomer pick would be Doomguy. I'm sorry, but I'm breaking my rules again. I think Doomguy deserved to be in Smash a long time ago, and the fact he isn't in yet makes me sad. The Animal Crossing and Doom meme was so awesome back in 2020 that Nintendo could even reference it in a team-up ability between Isabelle and Doomguy or something like that, but we know they would never be that self-aware. I think Doomguy would just be your typical run-and-gunner similar to Soldier 76 and Punisher.
I do not want to see Doomguy in
I could have
saved
Doomguy for the sequel video, but he's honestly just too good of a pick to not throw in the main one. When thinking about this video, I thought Nintendo would find some way to screw this up, knowing their online track record. But with Switch 2 on the way, looking to be far more powerful than a Switch 1, I'm very excited to see where they go continuing their crossover games. I don't need a Nintendo cart, but I think a change in genre for the crossover games would be such a breath of fresh air.
Hard.
But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. And of course, that's going to do it from me today. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I got some great content coming. My name is Delonic, and I will see you all in the next video. Take it easy and stay fresh.
Okay, W video by Delonic. A lot of those picks made sense for sure. I'm trying to think who would be my main if we were talking about the base roster for this game. If we're going off of characters that I play as, I mean, wait a minute, he didn't even go into Luigi's moveset. Matter of fact, he didn't even bring up Yoshi. What about the homie Yoshi? The homie Yoshi gotta be in the game too. Yoshi's fire. He could low-key be like a Groot type where he can ride his back and move around or something like that. I mean, Luigi's moveset would obviously have to be Luigi's Mansion type deal, right? I could see him maybe having like a, I was gonna say like a Jeff the Shark ult where maybe he sucks up the characters and then he can blow them out of the vacuum on like a cliff or something. But anyway, that's it for my reaction. If you guys enjoyed, check out the videos on screen for my Mortal Kombat Rivals videos if you guys are interested. And with that being said, I appreciate you guys for watching, and peace.